show. George Whitfield, surrounded by the most talented group of quarterback analysts you're going to find anywhere. From We Are Penn State, undefeated Penn State, Christian Hackenberg joining us in from New Jersey. Remote Bryce Petty, prodigal son of the Baylor Bears, and with two hometowns in College Station in Norman, Oklahoma, Mr. Trevor Knight. Fellas, we are now into week 3, different type of week this week. First of all, how are we doing? We all right?
Rocking and rolling, George.
Hack?
Good, buddy.
I'm just living the dream. I'm trying to ride Trevor's coattail right now. My guy's on a hell of a vibe. My guy is on.
I'm excited, guys.
Right
I'm
now.
excited to be on tonight. I really am.
I see. Trevor is a pitch man. If you're a restaurant owner or a franchise owner, you could find Trevor Knight. Give him your social, give him your at signs there, Trevor.
Social media handles.
Your social.
Particularly if you're targeting the folks that are under $10 a meal, call me up.
No
man.
doubt,
Right
no doubt.
here for
Trevor's a big coaster guy. Love coasters.
And that dude can move some weight. He can move some combos. He's killing it right now. You know who else is killing it? Today was offenses. Kind of boring, but we did have some kind of quasi-exciting finishes. Basically, fellas, to me, today it was like monsters acted like monsters. There wasn't a ton of shockers amongst the big ones. Let's go into it. First, if you're joining us for the first time, grab something to sip. If you've been with us, you know the drill. We are going to walk you through an exciting day of college football from our eyes. So we want you to grab something to sip because we do our toast of the week. Christian Hackenberg, we'll start with you, sir. Your toast of the week goes to whom?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the Penn State Nittany Lions, and specifically that backfield and the boys up front. I've been hard on them for the past few years, and I really think that they've kind of turned the corner. Got a real special back in Nick Singleton, but they also have a couple other guys that can get it done as well. Take some of that workload off him, and I think that offensive line is starting to turn the corner and get a little bit of an identity with the help of some really deep tight end room. So big win down in Auburn this afternoon. Here's to the big dogs up front and the boys in the backfield getting it done.
Bryce Petty, your toast of the week is held for.
Yes, sir. I'm actually going predominantly a basketball school that is starting to make waves in football. I'm going Kansas Jayhawks. I got kind of we got two sips really, boys, because what Coach Leopold's doing and Lawrence again is making a basketball school a football school. That's a stretch, but I'm just saying it's starting to happen. And then my man Jalen Daniels, 5 total touchdowns today, bringing those guys to 3-0, first time 3-0 since 2009, making waves. So Kansas Jayhawks, have a day.
Rock chalk.
Trevor Knight, I'm excited on behalf of UTSA and all its many alum. We anticipate it's coming our way, but possibly not. Your toast
going out west this week, George. Not sticking with the homer down in San Antonio, although those breakfast tacos are something to die for. Going out west, the Oregon Ducks. Huge victory over BYU, and specifically Bo Nix, 5 total touchdowns in limited action. Man, to get kicked in the teeth week 1, come back and score 70, and then beat a top 15 team by 21 points. That's something to raise your glass to. Mr. Bo Nix, with a little confidence rolling. Cheers to you, my friend.
Indeed. So I'm going to give my toast. We have our collective toast, and we have a special toast. My toast for this week. There isn't a hotter team in America right now than the App State Mountaineers. They go on the road last week, took a field trip to pick up $1.5 million, slug it out with the top 10 team in America from Jurassic Park and the SEC and Texas A&M. They return game days on the campus. They're probably barely sober from the last week, and then they wind up winning on a Hail Mary. They hold it together. Chase Bryce, that coaching staff, all these guys. Toast to App State. Keep the run going, fellas. We're rolling with you. A combo toast. Can you do a combo toast? Or do we got to break this up, Bryce? What's the protocol?
Do the combo. I like it.
Let's do a combo toast. 1, to the godfather of college football. Those of you that have been with us, to Mr. Lee Corso, and 2, to a very dear friend of this show. Got incredible news in the Northeast section of America. Incredible news. And he rolls with us, and he knows who he is. The toast goes out to him and Coach Corso. Fellas, to the 2 of you. All right. So let's roll here. Let's see. First off, Michigan State, Miami. Sorry, I'm just trying to pick this up. If you're watching Michigan State, Washington, the Huskies seem to be pulling away. Mike Penix, former Indiana Hoosier, is reunited with his old coaching staff from Indiana. These guys are rolling, a top 11 Big Ten team. And then you got the Hurricanes and Texas A&M. They're down here dancing in College Station. Seems to still be pretty much of a one-score battle. Thoughts on either one of these two games, fellas, since they're still going on right now? Trevor, I'll just start with you. Either one of these two caught your eye more so than the other?
Yeah, I'll go out to College Station. Obviously, a heartbreaking loss for the Aggies this past week, with what's at least this far in the season being a proven App State team that has some grit, that's riding a wave. We'll see what they do down the stretch, but change of quarterback, that is always a big question mark, right? You move from Haynes King to Max Johnson. Max Johnson obviously has a lot of experience coming over from LSU. I think he's stepped in tonight so far in this game, and he's provided, I'll say, some stability. Now, they're not blowing out Miami, but Miami could or could not be a good team at this point. But they're being competitive. He's not turning the ball over. He's moving the ball down the field at times. He's staying ahead of the chains, and that's what you want to see. To come out this week and play a team that's in the top 15 and be ahead by 2 scores now late in the third, that's what you wanted to see in response from last week, if you're an Aggie fan or an Aggie player. And so hats off to them. Now, is everything fixed in College Station? Absolutely not. Long road ahead. Haven't even gotten into the teeth of their into their season, But this is what you wanted to see in response to last week, if you're a fan or if you're a player, in my opinion.
Love it. Bryce, either way, are either of these games more impactful than the other? Did we learn about any one of these 4 teams, in your opinion, especially off of what Trevor just gave us?
I'll play with both of them, really, because this to me was more of a rebound game for A&M. It's never good and it's never fun to lose to a team like App State. Nothing against App State, but you're A&M. You're a top 10 team. This was, again, your year that you take down Alabama, you win the West, you go on, and it's your parade to win. All that's out the window now. But what do you do when you come back the next week? And I think that they've rebounded really well. And to Trevor's point, I don't think things are fixed with Johnson and being in there, but at least there's an up tempo about what he can do, and he delivers and he executes. To me, a lot better than Haynes King. And then when you go out west, watching this Washington and Michigan State game, I think the thing that kind of throws a kink in this for Michigan State to me, Mel Tucker is a defensive guy. Washington's running all over them. They're throwing all over them. They're just having their way with them, which is not what you really want to see. I know from Mel Tucker and that defense. And they've got a stretch coming up. They've got Minnesota. I think if they take care of this game, or they would have taken care of this game, I think there was going to be some games in there that could have been really interesting. Obviously, I think Minnesota's coming up, and then obviously Ohio State. So that one's not a fun one to be a defensive guy as a head coach and seeing your defense get thrown around like that. So that's kind of my 2 cents on these 2 games.
Hack, I agree with Bryce. Your thoughts on that? A&M, they are in bounce back mode. I mean, I can't even imagine what the first team meeting must have been like on Sunday, with the practices and the weight room sessions, players with coaches, players without coaches. And then So they are delivering. I mean, we're still in the third quarter and they're still battling, but Michigan State, to Bryce's point, where's the identity? They're 11th in the country, and we'll come back to the rankings. You're 11th in the country, led by a rock star defensive head coach. And he's right. This isn't a bag of tricks that Washington was running. They're coming off tackle. They're running traps. They're running ISOs, like simple RPOs. They're just following the guard, coming around, sealing. Your thoughts on either one of these two matchups and how these guys are handling it?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll start texting him. I think obviously there's some football left here. And I've been really impressed with how Miami's come out and play, especially when you look at the state of that program in the last few years. I think Mario's doing a really good job. And I mean, missed a field goal and had one blocked, so this could be a one possession game with some special team help, muff that punt early too, that kind of gave A&M the jump to go. So I've been impressed with Miami, how they've been playing defensively as well. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this throughout this show, but then shifting it out west, really impressed with Michael Penix in Washington. Like you said, I mean, they came out and punched Michigan State right in the teeth. I think Michigan State was one of those teams that benefited from their success last year in terms of their preseason rankings. Kind of didn't play anybody, didn't really find anything out about them. And this was their first test, but they had some depth issues in spring ball. And I think Mel's, the biggest gap that he's had has been their secondary. They've given up a ton of explosives last year, kind of live or die by the three type of defensive philosophies, brought some creative pressures and things like that, but they got burned a lot, and Washington took advantage of that today. And a guy that was very familiar with that from last year at Indiana, who took it in the teeth all year. So Michael Penix, hats off to you. I thought you put together three really strong performances, found a home out there in Washington. But I think we found out a little bit more about Michigan State. I think that they're going to be a good football team, competitive football team, tough football team, but I don't think they're quite there yet from a developmental standpoint, due to the fact a lot of their immediate success was from the transfer portal, and they lost that to the NFL next year. So Mel's still, I think, trying to figure out his DNA and his blueprint internally.
To Hack's point, Michigan State down at Washington. The game might be over with. And the Aggies have increased their lead 17-6 here on the University of Miami. Quick point here, since we're already kind of going back and forth on it. Can the field of 12 try to help out college football? I mean, I think we do a lot for college football in our little short existence. Thank you for watching. Those of you who are watching. Can we propose that we forget about the preseason rankings until week 4?
Oh, man.
No doubt.
I don't understand it, because and obviously I'm going to need a second and a third, and we're going to need some, like, it's been a while since I did the whole student council thing, but Notre Dame started the season out 5th. And they couldn't be, I don't even know if they're in the top 40. Texas, I mean, do we even know what they are yet? They were unranked. Penn State was unranked. They're going to wind up being 12th. Florida was unranked. They've shown an awful lot. I mean, there's so much to be learned about these teams, transfers, new coaches, new starters, new teams. And it really does matter where you start. So in 3 weeks, it took Notre Dame 3 bad performances to fall out of the top 25. And it took, for instance, a Penn State team to withstand a juggernaut offense in Purdue and then go down and just blow the doors off of one of the light heavyweights in the Jurassic Park at Auburn to now see themselves, they're 22 right now? Can we just, I'd like to get you guys' thoughts on that. I just don't like how we set the horses on the track and then let them run from the positions we set them, as opposed to putting everybody at an even gate. Bryce?
No, I think it's a great point. I'd almost even venture to say week 6 would be great, but I think as soon as if you to have the playoff committee take week 4 or week 6 and have that much, tape and in-game action, because what the transfer portal did in terms of just shuffling everybody around, but what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, this culture in the locker room. Hack and I were talking about it before we started. I think a lot of these things that we're seeing, some of these guys that are in Missouri State taking Arkansas all the way to the wire, App State
Right.
beating an A&M. You can just tell that this is obviously affecting these first couple of games. And so I love your point, George. And I know we've talked about it, for the last couple of years now. That's what needs to happen, because you're right. And I think the biggest point is it's where you start, right? A Notre Dame starting unranked versus starting fifth completely changes the playoff committee, because that can be the one that just throws a kink in the whole system. And if you don't play anybody and you're not that good and you skate through the whole schedule, it's where you start. And so I love it. I think that it needs to be something that you have the in-game footage, the game tape, start week 4, start week 6, start week 8. Hell, I don't care. But it can't start it at week 0.
Hack, your thoughts on this preseason ranking and how we do it versus how we could do it.
Well, listen, I'm gonna throw a T-shirt out there because we're dropping our merch next week. But I'm a big pod guy, so I think we should start with some pods maybe. But no, in all seriousness, I see the merit in it, and I see what you guys are saying. And I think the one thing that you'll hear all of us consistently preach is show us every week, every day. And that's just part of us having been in that position in the locker room and understanding the expectations. And that's what I guarantee every single one of these coaches are preaching, no matter where they've been ranked. You're only as good as your last game, only as good as your last snap, and you got to continually prove it. And we've seen teams come up and down. Fans look at it as a hangover and this and that, but the people that deserve the preseason 1 through 4 or 5 rankings, they usually get it right, because those are the ones that do come out and show it every week for the most part. The reality of it is that I think the fans, media, you don't have any preseason rankings. You didn't give them anything to talk about. So, I think there's part of a pageantry to it. And I think it does work itself out in the end. And I think the expansion to 12 in the college football playoff is even going to allow it to work itself out more in a much more fair manner. I think you won't have as many teams bitching and moaning about, we're the 5th team out, hey, we'll put 12 in there. I think if you're upset that you're outside the 12, then you gotta be doing some evaluation in the mirror. I like the concept, love the concept, but I just think it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to change the culture of college football fans for that. I think people like it too much.
Trevor?
Let me take a quick second. Hack made a point. We got Field of 12 merchandise dropping soon. So this thing makes me look really, really good. And so I'll go grab you some.
Wow, one more time. Wow.
Dude, you hold Baby Griffin in your
not one more time doing that. One more
what
time.
They call
so
that, Bryce?
the shirt.
Go grab you some merch. It's dropping soon. But
Trevor jumped with a shot to do that again. Taco Bueno? We're up.
Yeah, Taco Bueno. I'm telling you, just give me a call. I'm your man. But hey, I agree. I think that preseason rankings give us something to talk about, but no team, no fan is ever saying, hey, remember when we were ranked top 10 to start the year? It's all about what happens throughout the year, but it puts an expectation. And it's up to the coaching staffs and the individual players to manage that expectation. And if you don't, well, now you got a fan base that's really upset. And you've got a team that's underperforming, right? Yep. If somebody's giving you the respect to be a top 10 team, let's say a top 4 team to start the year, and you don't end up there, or you're not in the race at the end of the year, in my opinion, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I remember as a player myself, when I was playing at A&M, we got named a few weeks into the season in the top 4. We ended up unranked at the end of the year. That's going to haunt me every single day for the rest of my life, because we didn't finish the way that we were supposed to and the way that other people thought that we could. Right.
So let me ask you, let's go right to that, because I was going to ask all you guys this follow-up question, but Trevor, we'll start there. That's amazing. What if your Aggie team started the season 24th? And then even as you guys start to hit your stride, you're at 15, 14, you're within a puncher shot. Because again, we're just stacking expectations up. You just spoke to how it affected you as a player, but doesn't it also affect coaches?
No doubt.
Notre Dame's Jack Swarbrick and all their, headmasters and all their suits have been walking around all summer, said, we got a top 5 team. But what if Notre Dame started the season out ranked 25th? You go to Ohio State, you battle a monster. You can respect that. You come home, you take an L to Marshall. We're young. We were only 25th anyway. And then you have this, like, this wrestling match with the half-sleep Pac-12 team today. But the expectations completely changed. Doesn't it hurt a coach to be thrown up higher than what you are? But converse to that, couldn't it help a coach like a Franklin or a Napier or something like that? They're really on a racehorse, but the racehorse was counted so far back. They know they got kind of sandbagged. Does that affect coaches the same as you think it affects players and teams?
It absolutely does. I don't care who you are. Pressure sits on your shoulders. Now, it sits on different people's shoulders a different way, but pressure sits on your shoulders. So if you got a single digit in front of your name as a university, there is pressure leading into the season, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whether you're support staff, it doesn't matter. It's always, this is going to be the year. Now, the underdog story is always the greatest story because you're starting from behind. Nobody's watching you. You're not getting media attention. Tim Tebow's not coming and doing a walk along in your indoor, the week of the game to try and get everything. Like, you don't get all that. So you just focus internally to try and get to that point. So you battle. And the next thing you know, you look around and you're there at the top. If you start at the top, you got to battle to stay there. And in my opinion, even some of the best competitors are not able to do that. And that's what makes a Nick Saban so incredibly impressive is he walks into the season every single year with a target on his back. He says, come at us. We got the players. We're ready culturally. Let's go do it. And not many people can do that. And you see that year in and year out, teams dropping out of the top 10 pretty quickly.
Which speaks volumes to Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Clemson for a really long time. They wear it. They own it. I mean, they relish having it on. I mean, it just speaks volumes. All right, let's jump into some of these heavyweight games. I don't want to really call them heavyweight battles. Today, I think the most defining win happened down in Jordan-Hare. Penn State 41, Auburn 12. Just speaks volumes here. A couple quick notes before I throw this to you guys. First, it was the worst home loss for an Auburn team since 1984. Penn State went down south to an undefeated SEC heavyweight and outrushed them by 200 yards. That same Penn State team started the season out unranked. Christian Hackenberg will go to you. They're your boys. This is your alma mater. What jumped out? What were you the most surprised by or proud of? Like, just what was your biggest takeaways watching just a complete knockout?
Yeah, I think a lot of it kind of went back to my toast. I think Penn State, one of the things I noted was that they came into this game and really this season with expectations, to your point, that they haven't had to live up to, right? They kind of were the under promise over deliver guys. They had a great chance to do that this year, and they've done that up until this point. Great tough road test against Purdue to open the season up on Thursday night. Went home, handled business against Ohio like they were supposed to, and then kind of had this one circled to really find out what this Penn State team was about. The one thing I've been consistently struggling with is their identity offensively. They've had a lot of change in offensive coordinators over the past 5-6 years. This is Yursic's second year. Last year, I thought they were kind of gimmicky with some things. They did some things well, but at the end of the day, once Clifford went down, it became really even more gimmicky to me. They showed that they have the toughness and the ability to run the football. And whether that be a huge shift up front or the fact that they got Nick Singleton in the backfield right now, or a combination of the both, it doesn't matter. That is going to be Sean Clifford's best friend. Because the point I touched on Thursday night was that I don't think Clifford's a guy that's going to go out and win you ball games consistently, but he's going to be a guy who is never going to put you in bad situations. And if he does, he'll figure out a way to recoup that. And when you give him a weapon like a run game, it completely changes the dynamic of the type of quarterback he can be and the ceiling that he has within that offense. So if they can keep this up, they could definitely, I think, be a dark horse in the East, especially with what we've seen with Michigan State. And their schedule plays out really well. And we're going to find out in a quick bunch because they have, I think, Central Michigan at home, They have one more. I think they play Northwestern. Then they have a bye week. And then they have Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State. So during that stretch right there, we're going to find out what Penn State is all about. And I think up to this point, they've been building properly. And I just think they're really poised. I think the defense has came out, flown around. Manny Diaz has put a different emphasis on turnovers. They got to the quarterback this year. They turned they turned the football over. So they're in a really good position. It's just, they need to keep building and keep finding exactly who they're going to be, have some guys step up on the outside and rely on that run game.
That run game, Bryce Petty was vicious, outgaining Auburn by 200 yards, breakout freshman, true freshman. We just talked about it. This kid was in the prom last year, and now he's running all over Auburn. Penn State has an identity, or they are shaping themselves into one. A lot of teams are still trying to find one, Bryce. Like, all you guys have played at incredibly high levels. How much of a confidence booster is it to walk out onto the field knowing you're going to attack what you're going to attack, but the run game right in front of me is going to do what they do? A defense like Penn State's with two big physical corners, a front seven that won't yield shit, and all I got to do is just go out here and then control the game. Forget managing. I can control the game. Sean Clifford is in his fourth year starting plus COVID. Bryce, what did you take away from that? And they really are a complete ball club. Am I right on that?
Yeah, no. That's actually, you took the words out of my mouth. And I think that what's interesting about the quarterback position in today's game, there's so much hype around. If your quarterback's not a guy that can win you games, bar none, by himself, he's not a guy. He's not a dude, right? And to Hack's point, I think it was such a great point to make, because, and to even piggyback off of what you said, Sean Clifford's got a ton of starts under his belt. There's a lot of different ways to win games, and then to staple your team as a complete club. That is what you want. You want to take the first 3 games of the season, knock the rust off, get in game shape in a way that says, man, we can play 60 minutes with anybody, no matter what the game gives us. And I think it was really interesting today on a couple different facets, not only just in this game, but even what Dan Lanning did with Bo Nix in Oregon. They ran it 40 plus times today and got a big win. You do not have to put 40, pass attempts on your guy until he's ready. And I think that's what we've really seen with Stetson Bennett and his maturity process. What they did last year, what Kirby Smart did with him last year, they handed the ball off left and right, and Stetson got him out of plays when they needed to. And now he is the bell cow in that offense. You can win in a multitude of different ways, but I think there's too much pressure right now on the hype of a quarterback, even coming out of high school, going to the league as well, that they have to be a do-it-all guy. When you have a guy like 10 or Nick Singleton in the backfield, buddy, hand it to him all game long and just play with the chains. And to your point, I love what you said, screw the managing game. Like, that's not what that is. Controlling the game and being in front of the sticks is how you win ball games. And so that was, as a quarterback and just a fan of college football, that was a fantastic game to watch from a Penn State side of things. Auburn, a whole different story. They're going to have to find some things in War Eagle. But to your point, man, it gives me all the confidence in the world that we can go the distance.
You said we, like you, as in we are Penn State, like you. Oh, you're on that. You got yourself a ticket already, huh?
I like the ticker, the we are. It just feels good. I like a tribe. I like a tribe.
Does. It does feel good. Trevor Knight, your feel good moment about this performance on either side. We've been real Penn State heavy on it, but your feel good moment on either side of today's heavyweight deal down there was what?
Yeah, I'll say 2 things. Number one, my first road SEC game when I went down to A&M was at Jordan-Hare at Auburn. It's a great place to play. One of my favorite places that I ever played. Great student section, all of those things. That being said, tough place to play. And so to see Penn State go down there and push those guys around was impressive. That being said, I'll peel back the layers a few years. I think as we watch as college football fans and now even NFL fans, we see the game changing. We see quarterbacks that are running more. We see quarterbacks that are much shorter. We see offenses that aren't just line up and pound you in the mouth for a couple yards, a pop. We want to see big plays and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the rules of football are still very simple and very the same. 10 yards for a first down, and you're trying to score touchdowns. So if you can hand the ball off, and this is one of Hack's favorite things to say, and get 3.5 yards a carry, do that until you can't anymore. And I think that is some of the identity that Penn State has said is, hey, let's go into this game. And yeah, we've got some guys that can make some plays, but at the end of the day, we're still going to pound the rock, and we're going to get 3.5 yards a carry, and we're going to put it right down your throat. And it's still football. Got to get the ball in the end zone. So not overcomplicating it, but getting a great win for Penn State. It was pretty cool.
Full transparency, after every Penn State win, and I've done this for years now, I text Coach Franklin this Muhammad Ali knockout meme, and I text him that. And then tonight I texted him all caps body blows, and I put on there that O-line, all exclamation points, and he texted back, thanks, very tough place to come get a win, in all caps. Coach Franklin on their game tonight, that was Penn State 41-12, big knockout, big defining knockout. Curious is where they go now in the rankings. It's going to be how far do you guys think this is going to go? Where will they wind up, Hack, in your opinion, real quick?
Like I said, I think that meat of the schedule is going to determine, but I think that they're definitely tooled to survive that meat of their schedule.
No. I mean, ranking tomorrow, Sunday. Where will they go?
I got you.
How high up will this?
I mean, they got to. If they're not top 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there, I think it's going to be a comfortable ranking. But they definitely got to jump from that 22 spot.
Bryce,
that was mid teens. Auburn looked really bad. Auburn looked bad.
Trevor.
Yeah, I think Hack's right. I mean, I think it's comfortable. Don't throw them up there to put all the pressure on them, like we talked about before. Still got a lot of teeth to go through in the East there in the Big Ten. But early on in the season, get them up there and get them some confidence. And like Hack said, they could be a dark horse. They've got all the keys to the castle and the pieces of the puzzle.
And I think the other thing too is that I mean, again, this team was ranked 4th headed into the Iowa game last year. So they've had, they understand the expectations, and with the senior leadership, PJ Mustafa, Sean, like they get that. So wherever they land, I don't think it's going to matter.
They don't care. They don't care.
Because
you got Michigan and Ohio State. Yep. They don't care.
Like they know who they're going to beat.
Yep.
And you're really talking about 3 of the best football teams, and no matter where they land, 3 of the best football teams in America live in the same neighborhood, in the same conference, in the Buckeyes, Wolverines, and Penn State. So Penn State knocks out Auburn 41-12, worst loss by an Auburn team at home since 1984. Fellas, let's shift now to 2 teams that played each other week 1 or week 0, or however we did it. The Oregon Ducks played the Georgia Bulldogs. We call them here the White Walkers. Georgia blew them out. And they just didn't even score in the fourth quarter. I think that score was 49-3. Tonight, we learned more about Georgia from watching Oregon. Oregon had a big win tonight, speaks volumes about the Bulldogs. They beat a BYU team that was top 12, or I think 12th in the country. They blow BYU out, and that tells us now about the White Walkers. You played a team that you destroyed by 45. That same team 2 weeks later beats a top 12 team by 21. Which one of those two helps shape the week, in your opinion, more so, Trevor, what Oregon did or what we continue to see from Georgia and learn from Georgia by what Oregon did?
I think it's Georgia, man. Couple weeks in a row now, it is that team. And I said it last week, where you just exhale, turn on the TV, they're going to be up, they're going to be winning. And to me, that's the only team in the country right now that I have that level of confidence in. If I'm Nick Saban, I'm going to my 14 support staffs that I brought in the offseason, and I'm starting to watch film on Georgia, to play them in the SEC title game. If I'm anybody, I'm saying I want to emulate Georgia, because whatever they're doing right now, even replacing all those guys on defense, even saying, hey, it was the defense last year, let's see what their offense can do. They are setting the standard in college football, and it is not even close, in my opinion.
Bryce, is he right? We can just hats off to Oregon. We can just really just draw it straight to the White Walkers. I did watch some of the South Carolina game today, and every snap for South Carolina looked like a monumental effort to try to just get 2 yards. How can we just get 2 yards? Are they the most complete team, and will they pretty much remain like that given that they can stay healthy?
I think they will, and I'll say it this way: it's because they just did it last year, right? I mean, what we watched last year, and we had a lot of conversations that you deemed as the Roman Army versus the White Walkers, but what we got to witness last year, in my opinion, was one of the most complete teams on the defense, like defensively led, right? Whereas 2019 LSU, I felt like, was a really complete team, but led by offense. So it's kind of a two different pronged approach here. What they have now is a complete team on both sides of the football. Yeah. I mean, they are playing high level football on both sides of the ball, and special teams included. And so, to Trevor's point, man, if you're Nick Saban and you're not watching them right now to try and figure out how to beat them, I think he's going to be losing sleep. And so, watching what those guys do to anybody, because I think that, if South Carolina can go in a lot of places and probably, make moves and at least score points and make stops. And to your point, George, it was maximum effort on every play just to be on the same field as these guys. So I think it's Georgia, between those two teams, 100% Georgia in terms of just what that stands in my mind in terms of 2022.
Hack, everybody, we regard the White Walkers, the Georgia Bulldogs, for those of you joining the Field of 12 After Dark college football show, we regard the White Walkers so much on talent. And they had 8, 9 kids last year go to the draft just on defense, 5 in the first round. And then we talk about all these like silverbacks that are back in this locker room, and Bennett and this and this and this. But when we talk about the Roman Army, Alabama, we talk about Coach Saban. When you talk about Michigan, you talk about Coach Harbaugh. Ohio State, all kinds of weapons. It still circles back to Ryan Day. Are we giving Coach Kirby Smart enough credit on the front end? Or do we just look at it as he's just the head of all this unreal talent, and they go out there and just do it themselves?
Here's the thing. Everybody's got talent. And that you segued right into what I was thinking as Bryce was speaking there is, they play so efficiently. And when you see a team that has a scheme and they lose everything that they lost last year from an experience standpoint and insert talent into that scheme this year and nothing changes, you got to give a lot of credit to who's coaching them and how they're coaching them and the positions they're putting those players in consistently. So, and again, it's just, we go back to Saban, but Kirby comes from that tree. And I think he's one of the few ones who's now been able to emulate it and get there really quick. I mean, realistically speaking, he got there in a few years to how it's up and running from both the talent side and then the scheme side and expectations and putting those guys in positions to be successful. So I think
with a new guy calling defense.
Correct. Right. But that's my point though, is that Saban does that every year on offense, pretty much. And, defense is a different ball game, but when you get to that point, you're that's why I asked, a couple weeks ago, is Georgia possibly like this next dynasty? Because he's doing it. If you look at it from the big picture, he's doing what Nick Saban's doing. So, I think Kirby, man, he deserves a ton of credit. And I've tried to give him his roses. I know we talk about the talent, but I've tried to give him his roses. And I think that everyone should be paying attention to that as well.
Georgia Bulldogs, obviously big, strong blowout. They gave up their first touchdown this season with 58 seconds left in game 3. First touchdown. The twos are in. It came on a fade ball, and the youngster got caught up in traffic. Oregon has bounced back. Quick note on Oregon from our rock star producer, Trevor, who's making his production He's making his production debut tonight, by the way. Trevor noted that Oregon quarterback Bo Nix has accounted for the most total touchdowns versus a top 15 team since, fellas.
That'd be your boy number 2 back there, huh?
No, Marcus Mariota. Bo Nix had a total of 5.
What? I would have
Nix
never
had a total of 5 touchdowns today versus BYU, top 12 ranked team, and Mariota had 6 going back when he was playing back in 2014 season. So Oregon, Georgia, both big wins. I know it had to feel good for Oregon to get that off their chest. If we can pivot now, for those of you again watching us, Field of 12 After Dark, college football show. George Whitfield joined with Christian Hackenberg, Trevor Knight, and Bryce Petty. You can see us on Sirius XM on the app. Sirius XM on the app. Fellas, we now go to Oklahoma. Big question here, the Oklahoma-Nebraska game. I know a lot of people will be thinking about what do they look like without Scott Frost? Exactly what they look like. If you just take Frost off the sideline, it doesn't make any difference. But for Oklahoma, here's my question for the 3 of you. Did we really learn a lot today about Oklahoma? Because I pose this to you. They beat a team that lost to a team that lost to Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word beat Southern Illinois 64-29. Then Southern Illinois beat Northwestern 38-31. Then Northwestern beat Nebraska 31-28. So Oklahoma did the same thing Incarnate Word did, 2 teams, 2 games apart. How much did we really learn about Dylan Gabriel and Coach Venables and the Sooners? Do we know who they are yet? Trevor, I'll start with you. That's your boys. Your take on this, on your Sooners. Do we really know who they are yet?
I don't think you can answer that confidently at this point. That being said, this matchup, those 2 logos have a ton of history, but just eliminate this year out of that. It doesn't mean a whole lot. To the point that you just made, the losses and the turmoil going on at Nebraska right now, don't put that into some huge type of matchup, right? This was Oklahoma walking into a stadium that, great football atmosphere, great fan base, but a really, really bad team at this point. And they did what they were supposed to do, right? They allowed 1 opening drive score, which was really bad. Then they scored 49 unanswered, and Nebraska got a touchdown at the end of the game. They won 49-14. That's what you should be looking for out of a team that's building up towards conference play, a team of Oklahoma. And they walked into a team that's far inferior at this stage and during this year in Nebraska, and they handled them. That being said, even though it is that big logo, you can't put this as Oklahoma beat a big team, because they're just not a big team. They're just not. They're going to get waxed over in the Big Ten this year. And I'd love to hear Hack's, kind of thoughts on that as a Big Ten specialist guy, because it's just kind of embarrassing at this point.
So I wanted to do this. I wanted to let Trevor carry the Oklahoma conversation and go with Michigan and the other big dramatic games with Hack, Bryce, and all 3 of you. Quick note, Nebraska fans were seen up in the stands wearing Higher Urban Meyer t-shirts.
I saw that.
It has gotten to that point. Again, Nebraska trying to hang in there. And we love you now in Lincoln. Now we love you. The Field of 12, we love you. Now you can come on over here. We love you. We got your back. We've been looking for coaches since the first game started this year for you. And we will continue to. Hack, Bryce, Michigan, undefeated, and really the same question goes now with Oklahoma, but this is kind of me having it both ways, because on our group chat earlier today, Bryce asked a good question. Do we really know who Michigan is? I would pose this. If a zoo visitor falls into a bear exhibit and gets mauled, and then it happens again, and then it happens the 3rd week in a row, we can't really question, is the bear really a bear? It's blood and guts everywhere, but he hasn't seen another bear yet. tell these people to stay out of the bear exhibit. Hack, am I right? Is the bear still a bear?
Yeah.
It's just okay.
It just ain't been in the wild yet, having to scratch and claw for its food. It's getting fed.
Correct. And it's ugly. So they are now 3-0. Bryce, have you had a chance to really get a look at Michigan? McCarthy's in there. They haven't been pressed. They haven't been in long drives. They haven't had to come back from anything. But have you seen enough consistency from the 3 phases to really merit them being top 5?
Yeah, I haven't, but I mean, shoot, dude, we were in the same situation when I was playing at Baylor. I mean, look, we played Helen Keller State, and everybody was like, man, they're not playing anybody. But the thing was, we were putting up 70, and we held them to a field goal. That's it, so.
Yeah, I was Helen Keller State in pregame.
Yeah, they didn't talk much or see. So, but the idea was that, look, it doesn't really matter who you play because, again, and we've talked about it even on this podcast, the fact that, like, you still have a top 25 team in Arkansas that's playing with Missouri State, right? And you have App State coming into College Station and beating them. So the idea of that was interesting. I just kind of wanted to hear you guys' thoughts because that's what we heard all the time. Now, a lot of times I'll have to go back on this because I don't know our schedules, but I don't know how many of them were 1-9 combined, right? The 3 teams that Michigan have played have been 1-9.
So, interesting.
I don't know. I'll have to go back and I'll have to get Trevor to go look in the archives there when I was playing on what ours ended up being. But at the end of the day, they're going to have some juggernauts. And my thing with what Harbaugh is doing, if I can add this, and maybe Hack, I'd love to, I know you watch them way more than I do, but what he's doing, and actually we even talked about this pre-show too, but what he's doing with McNamara and McCarthy, and McCarthy went down today, but when you do get in a dogfight, if you don't know that the guy that is coaching your team, if you don't know that he believes in you and you get in a dogfight, are you going to run back to him, or are you just going to be like, F it, stiff arm me, I'm going to go do this myself? Does that question make sense to you? Like, what do you think is in, because he had an interesting quote today at the presser, because he finally actually talked about, what Harbaugh is doing and the way that he actually feels about it. It's going to be interesting to me when they're not playing, pancake schools, that, when they do get in a dogfight, what McNamara is going to do.
Hack?
You mean McCarthy?
No, I mean McNamara. Like, if you're that guy, we talked about it.
But I mean, you led the McNamara got banged up today. McCarthy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
If I switched them up.
But I know what you're saying, right? Like, I think with you and I talked about this as well. Like, we've never seen this before. I challenge anybody, any listener, anyone to bring up the last time a guy won his conference, beat its rival that they haven't beaten 10 years, and got a college football playoff berth, and then was fighting for his job heading into the next year.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of different conversations. I'd love to have a beer with anybody who wants to have a conversation about it. There's a whole bunch of different variables that go into it, but I'm not going to go down that path. I think this Michigan team's really good. I think some of those decisions are going to play into when they do play those other Bears in the East that exist, how you react. And if that situation does come up, I will be sitting right there texting you, Bryce, figuring out exactly what's going on and how you see it and how we see it and evaluate it by body language, things like that, because it's a very unique situation that I don't think many people have put a thought into.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Trevor. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna. I thought you were done with your point. I was just gonna ask, do you think JJ McCarthy and that quarterback room is like cohesive? Like, do you think him and Cade McNamara are boys, or is it like, hey, walk in, it's pretty awkward every day. They have their spots across the table from each other. They're going to help each other. Like, I've been in QB rooms and locker rooms where it's very cohesive, and there's two guys that are playing high. And then I've been in locker rooms where it's like, hey, we don't like each other at all, but when called upon on Saturdays, do you know? I mean, do these guys?
I don't know. I mean, they at least publicly, it seems like they're close and cohesive. But again, I think you're throwing in another variable, and a variable that we haven't seen in the transfer portal. And like, I don't think JJ.
I can speak to it. They're close. They're close. They're supportive. Yeah. I talked to Cade fairly often. No, they do back each other. And when Cade was running the lion's share of the work last year, and JJ and Harbaugh told him, look, JJ is going to have a series or two. Cade would be there when he comes off the sideline. He's actually the first person JJ would talk to coming off the sideline. It does help, to Trevor, to your point, when these guys are kind of like riding with each other. Like, between the two of us, we got to get a win. And you didn't dial it like this, and I didn't design it like this, but we have to get a win together. And they have been winning to that point. We are going to circle back, because that Michigan deal is going to ride on the front pages all season long. Fellas, I just wanted to move here, flip from these power team knockouts that were really boring to the non-power teams, the outside of the top 10 games that were really dramatic, and they were dramatic for different reasons. Syracuse and Purdue, Dino Babers and the Syracuse Orangemen knock out Purdue 32-29, 42 combined points in the fourth quarter. That had its own feel to it when you were watching. You were either excited for Syracuse or disappointed in Purdue. And then you go to South Bend, and it was like the anxiety game of the day. It was just pure anxiety. You're watching a new ball club, well, a team under new management, just try to give the game away the whole day to a lethargic, half awake Pac-12 team that really just wanted to come out and see what, the Midwest looked like and get back home in time for class. Which game kind of caught your attention more? Hack, I'll start with you, since the drama game was in the Big Ten. Syracuse, Purdue, like, what are we doing there with Coach Braum and the game management piece, and how we're handling the last couple minutes of these heavyweight matchups?
Yeah, well, that was just pure undiscipline. I mean, the fact that you made some points. I've never seen someone kick off from their own 10 and then subsequently receive a kick from the plus 35 or whatever the heck it was. I mean, the dude kicked it into the 200th row in the dome up there. That's how close he was. So the undisciplined side of it's kind of that was a real, I mean, I think for anybody, bettors specifically and fans, like that sucked. Because it was a really good football game. I've been a huge proponent of Aiden O'Connell. I think that kid can flat out play, and it's a shame that he's been going with that. Syracuse, give him a lot of credit. I think they got away with some sloppy football today, but they won, and you can't ever take that away from them. So that was a really fun game to watch. I was definitely really invested. But I think from a Purdue standpoint, you can't put yourselves in those situations, especially when you go down there, take the lead, kick it off, let your defense play the way they've been playing. Instead, you put them in a really tough situation with good field position and give the game up with, 7 seconds left. That's rough. So, I loved watching it. I thought it was a good one. And then, I'll let you kick it off to these guys with the next ones. But I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. Unless anyone else wants to touch on that.
The heartbreaking loss there, I thought, for Purdue.
Yeah.
We still know Aiden O'Connell is a dog. He drives these guys right on back down the field, but a little disappointing in Purdue. Lost some composure there at the end, all kind of penalties. Purdue drops one at Syracuse. Congrats to the Orangemen. Bryce Petty, the Irish, anxiety. Tyler Buckner out for the season. They haven't shown they can muster up offense with or without him. They get into this deal tonight. They got outrushed and outpassed by Cal and still won. 3 out of 13 on third downs. All those stats coming from our producer, Trevor. They still win. Where is Notre Dame, and how hot would this have been quickly, Bryce, had they have fallen 0-3?
I don't know. This is one of the more interesting teams that I think that's in college football right now, because I've never met Marcus Freeman, but I'm pulling from him from the sideline so
Absolutely.
bad. I want those guys to win, and you don't even have to blow a team out, but just don't make it what he's made it the last 3 weeks. I love the Ohio State game. The Marshall game, you're just like, man, what the heck? And we even talked about it again last week. You can't go to a pep rally or whatever you want to call it in college, and this is no better way to get our first win than at home when you still got to play. But I think that Marcus is I think that he is the right guy. I think that they just have to have the right talent. And we just talked about that about Kirby Smart. It's got talent out the, wazoo, but then, he gets kind of left in the dark room there just because there's so much talent. Marcus Freeman, I think, is on a different level because there is no talent there. And so you just kind of like, you got the magnifying glass on him going, hey, dude, Brian Kelly was doing this and became the winningest coach. Where are you at? And so, and again, with Tommy Rees being there as the OC, they still got the same guys that Brian Kelly recruited. What is going on there? And when you watch these guys versus Cal, they fight, man. They fight for, I think that they fight with one, for Marcus Freeman and with one another, but there's just no product on the field at all. There's gaps all in the defense. Cal guys running wide open, Marshall guys running all over them like they did last week. They've got to figure out on the front seven to be nasty and have some guys in there that reflect that type of tenacity that I think that Marcus Freeman can give those guys. And then ultimately you got to score points to win games. If you don't score more than the other person, you're not going to
win. Bryce, to your point, like they're going to have to generate something and closing this game out. Really disappointed by Cal. You had a chance, like you've been thinking about this game all off season,
right?
Your whole team, you've been getting all your breakdowns in the hot sun about like you had to be thinking about South Bend. You prepped, you traveled. What a deal that could have been for your recruiting. It's just like that guy in the store that loads up his cart all through the store. You did all that work, but you didn't want to carry it across the parking lot and load it up. All you had to do is just go load it up, get it out of here. But Cal drops it. Notre Dame escapes. Trevor Knight, lastly to you, and we are now in our 2-minute offense here. Thank you for joining us here on Field of 12 After Dark. Trevor Knight, I'm coming to you because of everybody on here. You're the only one to successfully transfer at all. You did it successfully with 2 programs. Chase Bryce is at his 3rd program. And you know how hard it is to get to a program, establish yourself, get in there. App State comes back from this field trip we had just talked about at A&M. He's got to get everybody's feet back down on the ground. In comes Troy State, has the wherewithal to pull off a Hail Mary tonight and get the win. What have your thoughts been on Chase Bryce and what he's been able to do in these defining moments in this season, this early season so far?
Yeah, I think to put it in layman's terms, he's a success story of the transfer portal, and you love to see it. A guy that, battles himself, doesn't find a starting job, and then goes to a place that, a good program. They've played a couple people tight, beat Michigan a long time ago that people still talk about. But he's on the field and he's able to compete and use his talents. And I know we could talk about the transfer portal a lot and how that's benefiting college football. But he is one of those success stories. Now, in terms of this game, you got College game day in town. You just knocked off A&M the week before, a top 10 team. There is more pressure, I think, on his back and on Sean Clark's back, the head coach of Appalachian State, than maybe they've ever had. Yeah, they're that team that, they talk about them in the longest yard of this horrible team. And then they beat Michigan, like I mentioned, and they've gone through the ranks, but they're still Appalachian State. Now they're on the national stage. There's a ton of people in town, a ton of energy, and they've got to go out and perform. I think they're better than how they played tonight. Let's put it that way. I think Appalachian State is going to have a pretty successful year and going to put a lot of good football on the field with all of that pressure on their shoulders, with all the hoopla going around them. I think the fact that they came out and they made it a memorable college game day game is awesome. They're celebrating tonight in Boone. They got the win. It was exciting, but I think they are a better football team than what they played tonight against a pretty subpar Troy team overall.
Here's the walk-off. And Trevor, thank you for taking us through that. Here is the walk-off question for all of you. If I could just get one place tonight, if you could go back and be one of those guys, what place would you like to be out on campus tonight, anywhere in the country? Hack?
Glory days, baby. I'm at Penn State tearing it down now that I can finally go to some bars, dude. Shoot.
for you listeners out there, Hack was like 16 years old when he graduated from Penn State, so we never got to enjoy the nightlife of State College.
Oh, I thought it was all the paparazzi that was in Happy Valley over there.
Yeah. Bryce, where would you like to,
dude?
Just tonight, where would you like to?
I'm calling my boy Hack. I've got my cargo shorts and Crocs, and I'm saying, where are we going? Because I'm going up north to Happy Valley, 100%. Yeah, buddy.
Trevor.
Man, I'd go a couple different places. I'll tell you what, I'll say this one just kind of in terms of the show. I'm going to Lawrence, Kansas. I know they're getting down to Lawrence, Kansas. But the other place I go, shout out to Jeff Goodman. I'm going to Indiana because he's drinking his sorrows away and he's back in college.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Jeff Goodman, please buy me around the shot, sir. I would enjoy an evening.
Hang in there, Jeff Goodman. And I will be taking my Saturday night talents and time out in College Station. I know it must feel so good for that whole student body to get that last week, that bad taste out of their mouth. They're getting ready to wrap this up 17-9, just like we're getting ready to wrap this up here at the Field of 12 After Dark. George Whitfield, joined by Trevor Knight, Christian Hackenberg, and Bryce Petty. We will see you next week. Big week in front of us. Until then, we're out.